In the autumn of 1996, I had run away from home and ended up getting a job at a small bar tucked away in an alley in Bucheon. The place had the feel of a miniature nightclub, and I began working there as a waiter. The first few weeks passed without incident, but gradually, strange things began to happen. One night, I was working with a friend. The bar was quiet as the night wore on, and we were taking a short break. That's when we saw something strange. White mist was seeping out from beneath one of the tables. At first, we were confused. We went to check, but there was nothing there. But it didn't stop. The mist began to appear more frequently and lingered longer each time. And there was always one common pattern. It would show up only after the last customers had left, when the bar was nearly empty. Then, one late night, I was cleaning the hall. The bar was almost deserted. Suddenly, I heard the laughter of a woman. At first, I thought someone was playing a prank. But the laughter soon twisted into something more like a scream. It wasn't human, and it was getting closer. Frozen in fear, I tried to trace the source, but there was no one. The laughter continued, echoing throughout the empty bar, but I couldn't find the origin. That night, the lights suddenly went out. After the last customer had left, I turned them back on and looked around. In the dim glow, strange shadows began reflecting off every surface, and they started moving toward me. I felt as if something was chasing me. Then, I heard a man's voice from room 8. "I'm waiting for you." The voice didn't sound alive, but it was too real to dismiss as imagination. From that day forward, whenever I passed by room 8, I felt a cold breeze trailing along my back, like someone was watching me. But when I entered the room, it was always empty. Still, the oppressive feeling of something hiding in the darkness never left me. One day, I finally stepped inside room 8. It was dark, bitterly cold, and damp as if it were the dead of winter. On the walls were torn pieces of old newspapers, all reporting on gruesome incidents that had taken place in that very room. Missing woman. Unexplained suicide. Customers involved in illegal trades. And then I saw something that made my blood run cold. There was a mirror on one side of the wall. But my reflection wasn't mine. It was a woman from the past. She stared at me with a chilling smile. Her expression was icy and full of malice. I felt like I couldn't breathe. I shoved the mirror and bolted out of the room. That night, I dreamed of her chasing me. Her face was torn and disfigured, her eyes black and hollow. "You have to stay with me now," she whispered. When I woke, my head pounded, and my body trembled uncontrollably. A few months later, I decided to quit. That's when I learned a rumor. A young woman who had worked there had taken her own life in room 8 after a mistake she couldn't forgive herself for. They said her spirit lingered in that room, tormenting others. On the day I left, I passed by room 8 one last time. The door stood slightly open. Inside, nothing but darkness. As I stood there, a cold wind brushed past me once again. That woman's smile came back to my mind, and I silently swore never to return. But her voice whispered in my ear, "You're already with me." The moment I heard those words, I could no longer bear it. Her voice echoed in my head, paralyzing me, making it hard to move or breathe. "Stop!" I shouted in agony. "Please let me go!" But her laughter rang louder in my head, closer and closer, freezing me to the core. I ran, or tried to. It felt like something had grabbed me from behind. I turned. No one. But in front of me, a mirror reflected my face. Only it wasn't really mine. The face staring back looked pale like a corpse. The eyes were hollow and lifeless. A faint, eerie smile played on the lips. "You're with me now," she whispered again. The voice wasn't a hallucination. It felt like she was right next to me. It pressed down on me, suffocating. I twisted my body and shoved the mirror away, and whatever had been holding me vanished. I bolted out of the bar, but from that moment on, I constantly felt something invisible chasing me. Every step brought a cold gust, and footsteps echoed behind mine. As I ran out, the bar's door slammed shut behind me. After that, my nightmares began. Every night I saw her face. It grew closer and clearer, to the point I couldn't tear my eyes away. She always repeated the same words. "You're going to stay with me." When I woke, my body ached, and I felt more exhausted than the night before. Day by day, I grew weaker. Even after leaving the bar, she never stopped following me. One day, I returned to the bar. The door to room 8 was open. Something told me that stepping through would bring an end to everything. But when I entered, it wasn't room 8. It was a collapsed building. "You can't escape," her voice whispered again. That's when I realized everything that happened in that place was woven into a maze, and I had become a part of it. In that final moment, her face appeared before me again. But this time, no smile. Just a cold, terrifying expression as she said, "You'll be with me, forever." I couldn't move. Darkness enveloped everything. Her hand reached for me and all feeling faded away. The last thing I heard was her icy whisper, "You're part of me now." That was my final memory. Since that night, I've never stepped foot in that bar again. But the horror never left me. She visits my dreams, and sometimes I hear her voice in the waking world. I became isolated. My body and mind deteriorated. Every day was suffering, and I realized there was no way out. One day, I finally understood. The horror wasn't just a ghost. It was deeply tied to the tragedies that had taken place in room 8. That room wasn't just a place for shady dealings. It had become a trap for souls, feeding on death and pain. I knew I had to end it. So I returned to the bar one last time. Late at night, after everyone was gone, I snuck in. Fear gripped me as I entered, but I pushed forward, determined. I stepped into room 8. It was as cold and dark as ever. But now I could feel it. Something was still there, waiting. The newspaper clippings on the wall rustled, and her face appeared again in the mirror. "Stay with me," she whispered. But I was no longer afraid. I had learned the truth. She couldn't move on because of the torment she had suffered, and she had trapped others in her agony. I decided to set her free. To do that, I had to reveal everything. The truth behind her death, the injustice and pain she endured. I made her story known. I prayed for her peace. And finally, when the truth was uncovered, she smiled once more. But this time, it wasn't terrifying. It was grateful. "Thank you," she whispered.